Hey everybody, so I've got some new rolling stock arrivals from Lionel. These were all offered in Lionel's 2024 Volume 2 catalog, I believe. And I just wanted to show them to you real quick because they're pretty interesting. So first of all, we'll start off with the least interesting of the three, if you want to put it that way. So this is something I got to go along with the Lionel AEC train set that they put out, I think a year earlier, might have been in the 2024 Volume 1 catalog. And I reviewed that earlier, so if you haven't seen that review, go ahead and watch it. I'll put a link to it in this video. But this is a matching car to go with that set. This is an AEC Gondola with some glow-in-the-dark containers. Now, of course, I tore off a little of the tag with that Lionel seal accidentally, but this is an AEC PS5 Gondola with canisters. Road number, I ripped it off. Road number 1951, die-cast trucks and couplers, glow-in-the-dark canisters, and 031 minimum curve requirement, although I think this thing might look pretty silly on 031. It's a pretty long car. Anyway, boy, I hate it when that happens. I hate it when you rip off part of the tag, and it's because of these Lionel seals that they put on the end of the boxes these days, this sticker. Sometimes it comes off easily, sometimes not, but it's this that little seal, and if it gets on the car, it'll rip off part of the tag. Anyway, the gondola itself looks nice. Let me get all these out. These are individually wrapped, which is nice. Keeps them from damaging the car, unlike that tag that damaged the box. So the gondola itself is very nice. I like it. Nice detailed underside. The ends fold in like that. And overall, this is quite nice. I like it. Nice little textured floor there to look like wood. It's all plastic, the body is. Then you've got some die-cast metal on the trucks and couplers, although it does have the modern Lionel trucks with the plastic core. I have mixed feelings about these trucks. They're okay, but I wish the couplers were sprung and would swing back and forth. That would help with going around curves, but they're okay. But yeah, nice gondola. I like that. AEC, Atomic Energy Commission, in case you don't know. Radioactive. So here's one of the canisters. Caution, radioactive materials. And then it's got some data on there. And these do glow in the dark, and it's the normal glow in the dark where you just expose it to a regular light source like a flashlight or overhead lighting, and then they'll glow in the dark. Obviously, the stronger the light you expose it to, the more it'll glow. So I like to shine a really bright flashlight on these, and then that'll make them glow nice and bright. And these differ from Lionel's Halloween-themed items like their triplex, where to energize it, you really need to use a black light to get the most glow out of it. These just require a normal light for them to energize. And the rest of the AEC set was like that as well. So very nice. So I'll get the rest of these out of the baggies here and we'll get them in the gondola. All right, and there we go. So there's 11 of those containers. And yeah, I think that looks nice. Now there's another car that Lionel is also bringing out that is part of the AEC theme. It's got one of those rocket booster segments on it, and it kind of looks like a radioactive waste storage cask, if you've ever seen those. That has not yet arrived as far as I know, but as soon as it does, I will put it in a video. But yeah, I think this looks great. And so when I end this video, I will run this with the AEC set so you can see it all together. If you didn't get the AEC set, I don't know if these will have as much appeal. I suppose you could run them by themselves, but they're going to look a lot better if you've got the AEC set, which is a fantastic set, by the way. All right, so next we've got some of these graffiti/weathered hoppers that Lionel offered, and these are kind of interesting. So let's get these out of the box. Now, first of all, let me say in advance that weathering cars at the factory is not an easy thing to do, and that's why most train makers don't do it. In fact, the only train maker I've ever known where you could actually order new cars weathered was Weaver Models, and that's because they had their factory here in the US, and so if you ordered it weathered, you paid an extra $50 and they would weather it there at their factory. They would take one of the cars that had already been made and take an airbrush to it and weather it, and they looked fantastic. They charged $50 for a piece of rolling stock, and I think it was $75 if you wanted them to weather an engine, and they always did a great job. But having it done at a factory overseas is going to be a complicated endeavor, and that's why it's almost never done. And so I want you to keep that in mind when we open this up, and you'll see why I said that in just a moment. So here we have a CSX ACF 4-bay center flow hopper, number 201582, die-cast trucks, operating couplers, and an 031 minimum curve. This is my favorite of the two because, well, I'll tell you in just a moment when we pull it out. Okay, so there it is. Now, this is my favorite of the two because this reminds me of when I was a kid. When I would see trains going around the Atlanta area as a kid, I would often see family lines, cars, and engines, and they were usually in pretty bad shape, and they kind of looked like this. So this is very nostalgic for me. And, you know, on the weathered part, I think they did a pretty good job. Now, it is a bit shiny, so, you know, it could have done with a more flat coat, or what I'll probably do is hit it with some dull coat just to take that shine off a little bit. But, you know, they did a pretty good job on this weathered section and on the other side as well. So, you know, I think that's a good job. Now, where it gets a little weird, and you've probably already picked up on it, is that the sides are the only part that's weathered. The top looks brand new, and the underside all looks brand new, and the ends look brand new. So it's a bit of an odd weathering choice. And that goes back to what I was saying about having it weathered at a factory overseas is going to be a challenge because, you know, you can't, if you want them to weather the entire car, that's going to be very labor intensive, and it's going to make the car even more expensive than it already is. So I can understand them not wanting to pay a bunch of people over there to spend time airbrushing, weathering on all of these cars. That would make them very expensive. But as a result of that, you've got what they did is they basically screen printed on the weathering, and that part looks good, but then you've got that screen printing on what is essentially a brand new looking car otherwise. And so, yeah, it's a really odd choice. Granted, if you're running this in a train, you know, and it runs by somebody, they're probably not going to really notice that when it's running by them at high speed or something like that. So, you know, for most purposes, it's probably going to be okay. But if you're like me and you're a perfectionist and you really enjoy weathering cars and seeing cars look properly weathered, you know, this might annoy you a bit. And so the solution is to do what they can't do at the factory overseas, which is to weather it myself. So I'm going to have this, and then what I'm going to do is take my airbrush and add some weathering to the other sides so that it'll look a little more realistic. So basically, this is the result of trying to do mass-produced weathering at a factory overseas in a way where you're not having someone spend a lot of time weathering each car one at a time. And I can understand not wanting to do that. Again, that's why I said most train makers don't do that, because it's very time consuming and it adds a lot to the price of the car. I mean, for Weaver, you had to pay an extra $50. So if they made people pay an extra $50 for these cars to have them weathered on all sides, I'm not sure people would really like that because the cars are already somewhat expensive. So I do like it. I'm not sorry that I bought it. I like it. I think the weathered part looks fantastic. I mean, it looks like they took a picture of a weathered car somewhere and just screen printed it on the side of this. So it looks, you know, it looks fantastic, this section. It's just the non-weathered sections that look a little jarring. So I will definitely be taking my own airbrush to this and blending it a little bit so that it looks a little more realistic. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. So you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it. I suspect a lot of people will yell and scream about it. There's no point in doing that. I applaud Lionel for the effort. I mean, I applaud them for trying to offer something that looks more realistic, that looks a little weathered. And, you know, aside from screen printing every single side of the car, I don't see how they could do it any differently. other than, like I said, having someone hand weather each car one at a time, which would make them much more expensive. So it's kind of a compromise. Like I said, I think for most people, if you're just running this for fun, I think it's going to add a little character to the train. Most people probably aren't going to sit there and nitpick and say, hey, the underside isn't weathered. But if you're, like I said, if you're a perfectionist like me, if you really like cars to be weathered all around, you might have a bit of an issue with it. But overall, I'm okay with it. It is what it is. I have an airbrush. I like doing weathering, and so I have no problem augmenting this to make it look even better than it does now. And when I do that, when I do airbrush weather it, I'll do a quick video to show you what it looks like after the fact. But yeah. So let's check out the other one. And they did several of these. They did a few different road names. I'm not sure offhand which other road names they did in the catalog, but these are the two that I ordered. So this one is the AEX Graffiti 4-bay center flow number 5094 with the same specs. This is a Rock Island, or used to be a Rock Island hopper before it was retagged for AEX. Which again, I like. I like that Lionel is doing retagged cars. I think they're making a good effort to try to give us some more realistic cars. So, I'm not really complaining at all. I don't want to shoot Lionel down. I want to applaud the effort. They're trying, they're trying. And like I said, weathering cars at the factory, especially when the factory is overseas, as they all are these days, is a challenging prospect. It's not something that's easy to do. And again, this looks great. I love the graffiti. The rust and the weathering looks great on both sides. I mean, it looks great, and the graffiti on each side is different. So, I mean, I really do like it. It's very nice. It's a good effort, I'm gonna augment this myself to try to make it even better. And, now that I think about it, that's probably the best way to view these cars is Lionel has done, they've given you a good starting point. They've done the sides, they've done the graffiti for you. So they've done a lot of the work for you. And now you just have to finish it up and weather the bottom, the top, and the two sides, or the two ends, I should say. So it's a good starting point. I guess that's probably the best way to view these, is Lionel has sort of jump-started the weathering process for you. And if you really want to get it looking its best, it's up to you to finish the job. I guess that's my final judgment on these. But I do think it looks good. I think on a passing train, most people aren't going to notice, like I said. But for those of you who are perfectionists, you might want to whine and cry about it a little bit. But I'm not. I don't whine and cry in this hobby very much. I try to relax and enjoy it, and I take it as it comes. And overall, I like these. They've done a good job. I've never been good at doing graffiti, so that alone has given me a leg up on this car. Lionel has done the graffiti for me, and now all I have to do is finish the job. So really, not bad at all. So what we'll do is we'll wrap up this video by running these cars for a moment. I'll run the hoppers on their own train, and then I'll run the new AEC Gondola with the AEC train, and we'll call it a day. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm Eric Siegel. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model and any other O-Gauge trains, check out the O-Gauge Railroading online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com.